The pillar of the world order is shaking, and the US dollar is under attack. For decades, the United States has dominated the world and big countries like China and Russia simply because of the power of its currency. But little did we know that these top dogs were not happy about this and have joined forces to dethrone the US dollar. If their plan succeeds, there could be a financial war that could change the world as we know it. But the question is, will Xi Jinping, the Chinese president, succeed? Or is there any way to stop them? Stay tuned as we take you around the world to find out. In 1944, the US dollar was made the world's official currency by 44 countries that allied together to make this decision. For those of you who don't know, a global currency can be used to buy and sell things anywhere in the world. Most international deals can be made with some of the world's currencies, like the US dollar, euro, and yen. And the most common international transaction in the world is the purchase of oil from Saudi Arabia, which is usually done in US dollars so that every country interested can partake without difficulty. According to the International Monetary Fund, the US dollar is the most used currency. However, as of this moment, the Chinese and Russian governments have been mulling over their master plan to not only dethrone the US dollar, but also to internationalize the yuan and build a coalition of emerging nations that will work together to break away from the US financial empire. In recent times, the proportion of US dollar reserves held by central banks dropped to 59% in the fourth quarter of 2020, the lowest it has ever been in 25 years. And now, according to some analysts, this is a clear sign that the US dollar is losing significance in the global economy. It is important to note that China and Russia have been allies for quite some time now. The People's Republic of China and the Russian Federation have these international ties, which are aka the Sino-Russian relations, which were established after the Soviet Union broke up. Both countries share a land border that was established in 1991, and by 2001 they had signed the Treaty of Good Neighborliness and Friendly Cooperation, which was later extended for another 5 years in June 2021. And ever since then, the two countries' military, economic, and political ties have only grown stronger, especially as they now work together on issues like their current plan to topple the US dollar. At a recent meeting in Uzbekistan, the members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO, agreed to make it easier to do business in local currencies. The SCO's economic plan allows people to pay and settle debts with local currencies and other methods. This is in line with the policies of their most important members, like Russia's desire to ease Western sanctions, China's worsening ties with the US, India's use of non-dollar currencies in its trade with Russia, and Iran's recent suggestion for a single SCO currency. Chinese President Xi Jinping believed development gaps could be fixed through regional integration, especially by strengthening local currency settlements, improving cross-border payment and settlement systems that use local currencies, and pushing for an SCO development bank. At the SCO summit, Xi didn't discuss the geopolitical risk of relying on the US dollar. His idea showed that the Chinese government has worried about the dollar's dominance and wanted to find other ways to protect its economy. Chinese institutions and multilateral organizations like the SCO aim to make the yuan a powerful regional currency. Beijing wants more cross-border commerce settlements and investments in yuan, which will lessen China's reliance on the dollar, reduce exchange risk and dollar liquidity shortages, and maintain China's access to global markets during geopolitical crises. Beijing is not responsible for China's efforts to stop using the dollar. Instead, the alliance aims to boost trade between China and Russia, making it easier for the two countries to work together financially and encourage the use of local currencies. When Russia invaded Ukraine in February, the US put restrictions on Russian banks, which didn't seem to bother Harbin Bank or Heilongjiang province. In May, Harbin Bank released its 100 measures to help Heilongjiang's party leaders open Russia's financial system. After the US sanctioned Russian banks, Chinese banks stopped doing business with Russian companies. Small and medium-sized banks in the Sino-Russian Financial Alliance could help Russian businesses get around sanctions by using the Cross-Border Interbank Payment System, or CIPS, or cash. Before the Belt and Road Initiative was made in 2013, China wanted to use the SCO to promote local currencies for two-way trade. After the global financial crisis of 2008, Chinese leaders thought about ways to settle trade without using dollars. In 2012, China's Vice Premier Wang Qishan said that SCO countries should increase the use of local currencies in trade settlement, develop bilateral currency swaps, and strengthen regional financial cooperation. At the moment, China is trying to make the yuan a more international currency in the region, and the most progress has been made in trade between China and Russia. Zhang Hanwei, China's ambassador to Russia, said that the number of trade deals using the yuan went from 3.1% in 2014 to 17.9% in 2021, which is a 477% increase. In 2020, the yuan made up 44.92% of the $48 billion that China and Russia paid each other. Russia has backed Belarus's bid to become a full member. Egypt, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia are also SCO conversation partners, as are Bahrain, the Maldives, the UAE, Kuwait, and Myanmar. This long list shows that the SCO is open to natural resource exporters who face U.S. sanctions or are unhappy with U.S. hegemony and the dollar's dominance. SCO trades in currencies other than the dollar for energy and other big things. The U.S. has been ignoring SCO growth for a long time, and relations between two of the SCO's founding members, the U.S. and China, have gotten worse. To top it off, a new U.S. alliance structure could make it hard for China, which has relied on the West to buy and sell goods, to work with the West. China's main interest in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO, isn't its relationship with Russia, but making the organization China's geoeconomic safety net in case the West cuts it off. This argument works for other members like Iran and India that are vulnerable to sanctions from the West or want to be less dependent on the dollar. The US government can't stop SCO members from working together to find other currencies for trade and investment within the bloc, but it can make the dollar-based system more appealing if it resists the urge to use sanctions too much and instead works to strengthen ties between the US and Chinese financial markets instead of threatening to break them apart. The International Development Finance Corporation and the Agency for International Development work together to help fund projects in other countries that will help their economies and societies grow. President Xi Jinping said that China could use the yuan as a stronger currency to try to buy oil and gas. This would help Beijing reach its goal of making the yuan an international currency and weaken the US dollar's hold on world trade. During Xi's visit, Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil exporter, and China, the world's second largest economy, both sent strong messages about non-interference. People who know about the situation say that Saudi Arabia likes the idea and is now in active talks with Beijing to price some of the oil it sells to China in yuan. This would make it harder for the US dollar to control the global oil market and would be another step toward Asia by the biggest crude exporter in the world. Talks with China about oil contracts priced in yuan have been going on and off for 6 years, but they have picked up speed this year because the Saudis are getting more and more upset with the United States' decades-old promises to protect the kingdom. Any move by Saudi Arabia to stop trading oil in dollars would be a huge political shift, although Riyadh had already threatened to do this when it looked like the US might pass a law that would put OPEC members at risk of antitrust lawsuits. Regardless of how Russia and China decide to play their cards, this remains one of the worst threats to the US dollar, and it continues to serve as a great concern to the US government because of the dollar's vulnerability. How do you feel about China's proposed strategy? Do you believe other countries will buy into using the Chinese yuan? Do you support their master plan? Let us know in the comment section below. If you also enjoyed the video you just watched, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe for more. Also, check out this next video.